Looks like it's going to be a good week to shoot the bow.
I've been shooting quite a bit.
Have you?
Yeah, I whacked a turkey the other day.
Did you? Nice.
Yeah, already. I'm like,
Nice.
in
Well,
Nebraska.
there was one walking by my house today. I was thinking about it.
when I was on trail fishing the other day, I saw the first tom strutting with a bunch of hens. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's
Really?
good.
Yeah, they were gobbling yesterday.
Were they?
Yeah, I woke up yesterday morning and there was all kinds of gobbling.
Oh, cool.
Okay, let's see.
I can move over.
Yeah,
to
why
the-
don't you scoot?
Oh, wrong way. Like that.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because when you read stuff on your shirt, let's put this like this, and you guys right there.
I don't think
Everything is backwards.
the camera is.
So I asked Karen to go with me. I went to Nebraska for a couple of days. I had some other stuff going on with different sponsors and people that I'm involved with, you know.
Yep.
That kind of hit me a little bit.
Yeah.
At home, she says, you want to go.
We'll get started here in a second, folks. Just making sure everyone's muted. You guys can keep chatting.
I'll show you the turkey.
I don't know why
I
this
turned
thing's
this
fired
turkey
up, though.
into a gymnast.
Into a gymnast.
That was awesome.
Oh, man, I wish.
I've never seen a kill like this in my life. I self-filmed it, and it was, that's the bird right there.
Well, it looks like we're gonna.
See if I can- watch this right here. I think he thinks that Jake kicked his hind leg, I think. Now, is there a restroom I could use real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show 'em. Oh.
Ain't that sorry?
Did a flip and landed it. What's up, guys? Anybody make it out fishing yesterday? Post those fish in the group.
Yeah. I don't know why this didn't fire up. My good camera. Hang on one second. Oh, here we go. Hey, look at that. Crystal clear now.
Yeah, so in Nebraska, you can get 3 turkey tags.
Really?
Yeah, it's,
When are we going?
yeah,
That was incredible.
I'd like to go back down there again.
Did you see that?
I think you sent it to me on a text the other day.
Doesn't flip.
Yeah, he does a
Lands
flip
it.
and lands it, yeah, and then,
I know it's opposite, so it's like, okay, so I gotta go over by right?
Yep.
Okay. I think we're good now. There we go. Yeah. Cool. Okay. We're recording. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Want to welcome Mr. Ray Howell here to the No Athlete Behind group, Left Behind group. And it's, you know, how I got to, actually, it's funny. I'm pointing over here and it's opposites.
it's all good.
But I learned about Ray from a good buddy of mine, JP Penscover, because I grew up in La Crescent, Minnesota. Ray lives in La Crescent. So does Ray, obviously. And he said, hey, have you ever met Ray Howell? And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's a pretty accomplished bow hunter, and that kind of lit up my interest because I'm a huge bow hunter. And then the more I've dug and learned about Ray, and since moving back to La Crescent, getting a chance to spend some time with you, he's just a world-class human being. And he's got a great story and a lot of great wisdom he can share from his childhood, from some of his accomplishments, but also from his faith. He's got a great story. So I know, and his neighbors,
Yeah.
Ironically enough, how don't you share that?
Yeah, no, so me and Ray live pretty close to each other. both love hunting. That's kind of how we got to know each other. He stopped by, introduced himself when I got my place up here in the Crescent, and he's just an incredible human being. We kind of talk to each other throughout hunting season, and he'll send me these videos of these giant deer walking right below him, and it's just unbelievable, because I don't think anyone can truly understand how hard something like that is, to have a deer of that caliber right under your tree, having no idea that you're there. And just a crazy cool and really interesting person, and really happy he's joined us today. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy his story. He's the founder of Kicking Bear Ministry. So if you guys need some chicken today, get over to David Ray's in Alaska and pick up some chicken. And
everybody else is at home.
Absolutely. And I'll just remind everybody, on your end, you can mute yourself. Just make sure that you're muted. Yeah, you can put that.
Yeah.
So let's just let's start at the beginning, Ray. I mean, I read a whole thing on you last night, just being interested, and you got an interesting upbringing. We all do, right? We all have our own story, our own childhood, but let's kind of start there, because a lot of our the kids that we're working with from ages 7 to seniors in high school, I think we can all relate to that, since we've all gone through it and they're in it. So tell me about that. Tell us about it.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I had the greatest dad and most incredible mom in the world. I mean, mom was mom. She's at home all the time taking care of us kids and stuff. But when dad came home from work, I'm going to tell you what, it was really special, because we always stood at the window waiting for his car to pull up in the driveway. And when he got into the house, it was game on. And I'll tell you what, we're hanging on his feet and he's throwing us around. We're having fun, hooting and hollering. And it was fun. And, mom was great, but I mean, it was really something special about dad. And on weekends when he didn't have to work, we got to do stuff with dad. I mean, it was kind of like a special bonus, And the one weekend I remember in particular, when I was a kid, I was only 5 years old. Dad was out in his old jalopy with us, and we got stuck in the mud. And I remember looking at the tires. I'm telling you, the mud is up halfway on them tires, and we are stuck. And I'm a little worried we ain't gonna get home. I'll tell you, it's just I'm a kid. My dad, he became the hero, man. He got us home to mom, and it was all normal. And so that part of my life was really joyful. And I'm one day at home, my mom and dad were talking, and I come around the hallway, and I overheard my dad say to my mom, "I'm leaving." And he said it in such a voice that I had not heard before. It wasn't anything mean or violent or anything. It was just real serious. And so when I heard that, I said, well, my dad ain't leaving without me. I took off and went into the back of his car, and I got up high in the back seat of that car as a kid, up on the floor, because there's no way my dad's going to go without me. And I'm hiding there, and it wasn't very long, that back door opened up, and I hear him say, "Here he is." And they pulled me out of the car, and I'm telling you what, I'm kicking and screaming at the top of my lungs, "Dad, don't go without me." And they pulled me out on the ground, and my dad is a different person. It's like somebody I had not known him before. He just like he was ignoring me. I'm screaming, "Dad, don't go." And he gets in the car and drives out of the driveway, and down the road he goes. And I mean, what just happened? And I mean, I'm upset. And what's interesting about things going forward, there's like a dark cloud came over the family. And my brothers and sisters and I stood at the window every day waiting for my dad to come home after that. He never came home. And went on and on. And my mom was different. Everything was different. It was just, the joy was gone. And then one day the doorbell rang. I walked up to the door. Here's this real tall guy standing there. And he points his finger at me. There's a little short lady, she's about half the size. And he points his finger at me and says, "You're Raymond. I'm your Grandpa Obert." I'm looking at him. And really? And he's got a big smile on his face. He walks in the house, and he's got a presence about him that has an uplifting joy. I don't know how to put it. He was fun. And he's talking away, and I get to know him. And he says, well, we're going to take you and your mom and your brothers and sisters, we're going to move you back home with us. And, you know, wow, he packed us up and took us from Flint, Michigan to La Crosse, Wisconsin. And my grandpa became my dad. He was an awesome guy. I mean, he bought me my first bicycle. I went to school. Everything was normal. I got to go fishing. And he took me out and introduced me to people and treated me like, man, he was proud that I was his grandson. That was pretty cool stuff. And anyway, going forward, everything was a pretty normal life up until I was about 12 years old. My grandpa was really my dad. And then I found out he was sick. And I found out that he wasn't getting any better. I thought it was just like a flu. It just kept getting, he was a big guy. He's just shrinking down, shrinking down. And my mom and my grandma sat his kids down and said, Grandpa's really sick. He's got what they call crawling stomach cancer, and we don't know if he's going to get better. So are you kidding me? My grandpa's the toughest guy I know. He's going to get better. And you know, while he was at home there, he really did. It was after a while, he wasn't getting out of bed much. It was really bad. And I loved him. I mean, I would do anything for him. And finally, they said, okay, we're taking him to the hospital. Okay, go in the hospital. He's going to get better. You know, everybody gets better. You go to the hospital. Anyway, I went to the hospital after school every day that I could to see my grandpa in the hospital. And the one day I went there, they wouldn't let me in the room because my grandpa passed away. Twice in my life, a man that I loved very much, I had no control over it whatsoever, and they were gone. And you know, that cloud now starts coming over our family again. My mom and my grandma are confused. There's now money problems, there's this, there's that, how to do it. The kids really now are not the focus anymore, and rightfully so, because all what was going on. The spiritual leader of the family is gone. And so for me, going forward, I wasn't the best at basketball or wrestling or football. I wasn't really super good at team sports. And I remember going to school and I got bullied. I got the ever living daylights kicked out of me a couple times for no reason at all. And nothing I could do about it. I didn't have a dad or a big brother or my grandpa to put his hand on my shoulder and say, stay away from my kid. Man, I got to the point where I didn't want to go to school no more. It was that bad. It was really bad. And then, so I started hanging around with other kids that had the same problems. Those kids that were standing on the corners that were smoking cigarettes and hanging in a group, I started hanging around with them more or less to protect myself from these bullies, and they took great joy in doing what they're doing. I don't, to this day, I don't know why, but anyway.
Were many of these, no mind me interrupting, were many of these bullies, were they athletes that were in sports and were maybe, you know, influential good athletes, and they're picking on you because you weren't?
Yes and no. Some of the athletes that were really good athletes or had kind hearts were just wonderful people. These guys are just thinking that they were better than you, and I think their joy in life was to pick on somebody.
Sure.
I don't know how else to put it. I remember some of the athletes, and they're still friends of mine today. They're good people, but it's just that's who they were. So what ended up happening was I hated going to school so much. My mom and my grandma really couldn't control me. I'm a tough kid now because I didn't have a dad or a big brother or a grandpa to grab hold of me and say, straighten out and get your schoolwork done. I'll take care of them bullies. I didn't have that. And so I started skipping school. And man, we'd go down by La Crosse and hang out on the beaches down there. No school, man, partying all the time. And the next thing you know, I wasn't going home. We were sleeping in tents on the sandbars. And, you know, one thing leads to another. I don't care. You know, I'm only 13 years old, but it's all there. The drinking, the carrying on, chasing the girls, driving cars when you're 13 years old. I mean, man, oh man, I was doing it all. I mean, just, I wasn't a bad kid. I was just down the wrong path. And so this kept getting worse and worse. I mean, you wouldn't, You do one thing and it gets normal, then you go do it again, it gets normal, and next thing you know, you're doing stuff that you never even dreamed you were doing. And so one day I went home to see my mom. I love my mom very much, and my grandma. And I walked in the house, and there's this big guy there. And I walked in the door, and he again points his finger and said, "You're Raymond? Sit down." And there's my brothers and sisters sitting at this table, and there's a chair there. I sat down in that chair and said, "Who's this guy?" You know, and I didn't realize it at that moment, but I lost my freedom right then. They sat us down and said, "Well, you kids are out of control, and we have new homes for you." And just like that, they marched us out the door. My brothers and sisters went in one car, and I went in another car. And they took me to a place in Holman that was a work farm. There was 5 other boys on that work farm. And I'm going to tell you what, those boys there were in trouble in their life. I mean, they were not the kind of kids you want your kids hanging around with. And man, every morning I got up, I milked cows. I went to school smelling like a cow, and I milked cows for chores at night. I couldn't go out for sports. I couldn't go hunting. I couldn't go fishing. It was terrible living in a country, and people come out there to go hunting on the farm, and they got to go hunting. I mean, they're deer hunting. I'm milking cows. I mean, it was a nightmare. And this nightmare I was living in got worse and worse. And so it was like being in a prison. There was no bars, there was no walls, there was no barbed wire, but I couldn't get out of it. And in reality, it wasn't my fault that it was there. But you know, as I started realizing nobody really cared about me. I was out there milking cows. This is it. It wasn't like I liked to work. I learned to work. It was pretty cool learning that work and stuff. And but when you're doing things that nobody cares about you, it's a whole different ballgame. So one day the school bus pulls up to the school. Everybody gets off that bus. They go into the school building. I took off. I went out and hitchhiked a ride back to La Crosse area. I went and saw my mom for a couple of minutes, gave her a big hug, and I went back out to the party and goofing around with my friends. I mean, this is back, man. I'm free again. All right, this is good. And you know, doing that stuff, it just, everything that was bad got to be normal. And it was about a week went by, and the police caught me, and they picked me up. And for truancy, they gave you 3 days off of school. My 3 days were spent in jail. They took a 13-year-old kid, 13, 14, took me to jail and had me sit in jail for 3 days to teach me a lesson. Then they take me back to the foster home. Well, in this part of my life, I want you to know that that was not teaching me a lesson at all. It was even making me hate things even more. I got to the point where I didn't care about nothing. Matter of fact, I ran away from that foster home every had a chance to do it. They throw me in jail. I'd go back to the foster home. I'd run away again. I kept taking off. And I remember the 5th time I ran away. I went back. I saw my mom for a couple of minutes. And I'm in the house. I'm getting ready to take off, go see my buddies. And the front door and the back door, there was officers at both of them. They caught me. I didn't get 5 minutes of freedom, and I'm caught. I'm in the squad car going back to jail, and I'm thinking, how did I get caught so quick? I mean, I didn't even get to be with my friends. And then it hit me. It was my mom that called the police. And at that moment, my life was probably the lowest of absolute lows that day, because the person that I loved, that really made a purpose for me to be anywhere, was my mom. And she just called the police on me. Now I have nobody in my life that I can trust. Nobody cared about me. And I remember going to jail that night, and I'm a tough kid. I'm uncontrollably crying. And I knelt down on the concrete floor up against a steel bed, and I prayed to a God I didn't know. I said, God, would you please put somebody in my life that no matter what would happen, won't leave me? You know, everything I've had so far is everybody just rejection and not being with my people, getting sick and dying. And man, I'll tell you what, it was and you know, so I wasn't suicidal or anything, but I didn't care anymore. I didn't care if I lived or died. I was not going to be imprisoned in this life no more. And, you know, for a kid to make a decision like that, you know, for 3 days, I sat in jail waiting for them to come and get me, because I had a new plan now. I am not going back to the foster home. They're going to put me in that car to take me back. And at the first stop sign, I'm going to jump out of that car and take off running. This time I'm going to the cities. I'm going someplace where nobody knows me. and I'm going to be freed. I didn't care if I lived or died. This is my decision. And so on the third morning, I was scared to death. I want you to know that. But I made my decision. On the third morning, I had my cornflakes and my coffee for breakfast, worst tasting stuff ever. And I'm sitting down on a steel bench. And on this bench, there's a bunch of magazines on there, and I'm waiting for the parole officer to come and get me. I'm sitting on that steel bench, and all of a sudden there's a magazine I hadn't seen before. It's a hunting magazine. And I open it up, and man, there's pictures of elk and moose and bear in there, and there's stories in there, these people going hunting and having the opportunity to harvest these animals. And I didn't realize it, but as I'm looking and reading this magazine, I'm taken out of this depression that I'm in. And this, man, I'd like to do this. This is what's my mind. Man, this would really be cool to do. This is freedom. This is, man, people really get to go to Alaska and Canada and get to do this stuff. And just then, I heard the bars of that door drop and bang, and I opened the door up, and there's the walking nightmare right there. And he's looking at me, come on, Ray, I got to take you back home. I went right back into that depression. I'm going to tell you what, I was quiet. I'm ready to run. And I think he knew it. And he gets me in the car, and we're driving down the road, and I'm looking for the stop sign. I'm scared to death, but I'm looking for it. And he says to me, he says, Ray, I seen you reading a hunting magazine. He says, you like hunting? And I'm a tough kid. I ain't supposed to talk to this guy. I looked at him and said, yeah, I'd like to go hunting sometime. And he says to me, he says, I'll tell you what, you promised me that you don't run away from your foster home again. He said, I'd like to come with my sons and pick you up and take you hunting. In the meantime, I'm going to try and find you a better home to live in. And I looked at him. I had two choices here, to make the promise or run. And I just had a dream in my head that, is this real? Anyway, I looked at him and said, yeah, I promise you I won't run away. And shook his hand, and he dropped me off to the foster home. Every morning, got up milking cows, smelling like a cow, going, and it was the same routine. And living with those other guys, I mean, anyway, but I had this dream that he was really going to come. And no kidding, one day, my foster mother walked up to me and she said, Ray, Tom's coming on Friday. He wants to pick you up with his sons and take you hunting. You want to go? I said, are you kidding me? And I mean, you could have heard me scream all the way back to the cross here. Yeah, I want to go. And all of a sudden, I'm uplifted, man. I'm floating on. I really get to go hunting. I don't really know these people, but I get to experience a dream maybe. Anyway, he came on Friday and picked me up with his sons. I met his sons and took me to Black River Falls, and we were out in a cabin out in Black River Falls, shooting bows, bonfires, telling stories. And oh my gosh, he gave me hunting clothes. His kids were great. I mean, they're just like my own brothers. I mean, we were having a great time. And I remember him saying, okay, it's time to hit the sack. We got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. And man, I'm so wound up, I can't sleep. And I remember I got my hunting clothes on. I ain't sleeping. I'm waiting for the alarm clock to go off. So I didn't sleep awake that night. And I
still don't.
Yeah, I know. It's no thing.
Yeah.
So the next morning, the alarm clock went off, and Tom comes out of that bedroom door. Bang! The door hits the thing, and then his sons come out of the other rooms and, come on, you got to come out back. This is tradition. It's dark outside. It's cold out, and what are these guys up to? They're running out there in their shorts. They ran right out the door, ran off the dock, and jumped into the pond behind the cabin. And they're out there splashing around. It's dark out. You can't even see it. Come on, Ray, it's tradition. Come on, you're screaming at me. You guys are nuts. I ain't jumping in that water. I'm standing on the dock, and they're, come on, you got to jump in. It's tradition. And, you know, it wasn't very long. For whatever reason, I jumped in. It was cold. It was the coolest thing I ever did in my life. And you know something? I became a part of that family that morning. I mean, and that weekend, I remember being deer hunting and being in the woods. I mean, man, I'm really doing it. I remember the first deer I saw. I had buck fever so bad, I don't even remember what happened. I was hooked. I was hooked forever.
I still get that.
Yeah, the cool thing about it was on the way home, back to the foster home, I was talking to Tom. I had somebody I could talk to. And he said to me, he says, Ray, you're going to be 18 years old soon. He says, I know between 14 and 18, it's forever. But he said, you're going to be 18 years old soon. And when you turn 18 years old, you can have your own job and make your own money. You can have your own family and you can go hunting. You're an American. You're free. This will not last forever. Just hang in there. And he said, if you need anything, just talk to me about it. I'm here for you. We're going to go hunting again. And you know something? I only went hunting with Tom 4 times during my high school career, but that guy got me on a path. He got me on a path that was of dreams. And you know something? Because we are Americans and we are free, and God has anointed these men and women to keep us free. I tell you what, we do get to chase our dreams. And when I turned 18, it was like somebody let the cat out of the bag. I went after all of it. I got married 1 month after I turned 18. I was working 2 jobs and going to school, and I got to go hunting. And at the same time, I started weightlifting because I didn't like bullies. Now, I didn't want to weightlift to pick on people. I just wanted people to leave me alone. On the other hand, I didn't know how competitive I was. You know, I was weightlifting. I met some other guys that were lifters, and I learned a lot about it. And after about probably 3 years, I thought I was good enough to go and compete in the tournament. We went to Fox Valley, and I remember getting in that tournament. I was so nervous. I'll tell you what, I've never been so nervous in my life. I get in this tournament, you know, and I thought I was going to do pretty good. Boy, I got burnt. Boy, I'll tell you what, I got smoked. I got stomped. And after losing, I think I took 4th or 5th place. After losing at that tournament, I will never get beat again. And you know something? Being a drug-free lifter, I didn't realize that the athletic part of me really helped me through a lot of things in life. It helped me through stressful things with the business. It helped me through stressful things with sickness and so on, things that go on in life. And you always had the gym to go to where you could just go there and cut the rest of it out. Yeah. And you know, I'll get off on a little bit of a story here because this really happened to me. I'm a kid from a broken home, and I still think about it. It just humbles me that I had the opportunity to. But you know, after about 10 years of weightlifting, I was doing okay. I'd go to a tournament, I'd win first place here and there, and after 15 years, you start getting to the point where you're setting records. And as long as you stay drug-free and you stay focused and doing it right, you won't get the injuries that come along. There's things that happen, but man, I was doing okay with it after 20 years, but man, I was setting records. And I mean, it was just unbelievable that, and I didn't have any bullies picking on me. I was treated with respect. And I remember going to a tournament, and I had set a world record, a raw world record at that meet. And
What was the lift?
It was, I did it in a bench press, and I opened up with a 405 in a raw tournament, and I think I weighed 220. And so it really didn't hit me that hard with what I did. It was pretty cool. But about a month or so later, I got a letter from the United States Powerlifting Association asking me if I would consider competing for the United States at the World Tournament. And I looked at that letter, and I looked at my wife, Karen, and I said, Karen, let's hang this on the wall because I can't hardly believe we got anything like this. And, you know, what's the chances? And anyway, I talked to her over it, and she said, well, if you want to trade for it, let's do it. And the meet was in Idaho Falls. So I trained in it. I did my best that I thought I could do and all the lifting. And we went to Idaho Falls together like a couple kids. I walk in there, and I'm going to tell you what, there's people from all over the world. There's interpreters, and everybody's looking at you with kind of a mean look, you know, you know, in reality, there's so many different people in different sides that you don't know who you're competing against. It's kind of interesting. And their names are all there. Anyway, what ended up happening was it was a 5-day tournament, and I did my best. And I didn't know between my weight and the kilos and the pounds and trying to figure all this stuff out with what the other guys were weighing. I had Karen with me, but these other guys, they had actual teams that were there. Matter of fact, the Russians had their whole team was with the military. And those guys were watching me close. Every time I did something, they were watching me. And I remember sitting there on the last day when they were handing out the trophies. I knew I did good, but I didn't know if I did good enough because of the pounds and the age, all the rest of the stuff that went along with it. And they started handing out the trophies for the 242 pound class. I leaned over and I said to Karen, I said, Karen, if they call that Russian up for second place, I know we won it. And my breath, you know, from fifth place to second place, I didn't know I could hold my breath that long. I'm just, man, is it possible that we could have won it? And no kidding, they called him up for second place. And I'll tell you what, I was just sitting there with tears in my eyes.
Wow.
And then they called my name. And, you know, my wife, she's been in this thing with me since the beginning. I grabbed her right by the hand. I took her right up on the stage with me. There's no way I was going to go up there by myself. And you know what it's like to stand on a stage and listen to the anthem play and flag with you there? Holy smokes, a kid from a broken home, a bullied kid is standing on the stage and has done something that I couldn't even believe myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not bragging about it. I'm just telling you, you know, in reality, we talked about our bullies are in your life. I mean, these things happen. Do you overcome them? And what happens when you overcome them? It's for good.
Yeah.
So going forward, I had started I was 23 years old. I'm going back now. I was 23 years old. I had now got 5 kids. They're popping out left and right. And I mean, I'm making good money, but I can't quite make enough. I'm going to tell you what, the bills are there, all the stuff. My grandpa was such an influence in my life that he had a business. I thought, I want to be like my grandpa. And I said, man, I can't do any better working for somebody else. I'm going to try it on my own. I made a pretty tough decision that day. It was pretty bold. I'm going into business for myself like my grandpa. And I did. I quit my job and I went into business for myself and I started a shop. And, you know, I want you to know it was the fear of failure that made me succeed. I remember when my daughter Danielle was born, it was the greatest day of my life. I'm holding my arms, I'm just, tears coming down my face. I cannot believe how blessed I am. I looked at her, I said, I'm going to give you everything I never had, but most of all, you're going to have a dad. And, you know, that stuck with me as I'm going forward. I'm not going to let my kids live like I did or go through the things I did. And you know, so being a failure, there's not going to be, this is it. And anyway, what was interesting, you worked hard, the business started to grow. And it was interesting as the business was growing, after a while, after 5 to 10 years of it, I started being able to chase my dream. I did all the sports for the kids. We went wrestling and track and all the things we did together. Man, I spent more time with my kids than I did at work most of the time, but it was worth it. Mm-hmm. And but once you're out of school, it was like, man, I started turning into a teenager again. What do I do with myself? I mean, I have all new friends. I mean, I didn't know anybody anymore because we weren't at wrestling meets or we weren't at track meets and stuff. Anyway, I started chasing my dreams with a bow in my hand. And I'll tell you what, being 13 years old, looking at that magazine and always wondering if Canada and Alaska are real, I'm going to tell you what, they're real. And I got to chase my dreams. And I found in my life that it wasn't how good I was, it was how persistent I was. I mean,
take note, everybody.
Yeah.
I don't care how many times you fail at something. If you are persistent at it, you do it one time right, you did it. And I found that with everything. I found it in business. I found it in the sport of powerlifting, and I found it also in the sport of archery and hunting. I loved being in the outdoors. I love challenging myself. I love being in areas where there's grizzly bears and brown bears and these critters, and then coming in close on them. And man, do I have the nerve to be able to make the right shot? I mean, oh my gosh, challenging yourself over and over. And I mean, hunting at 60 below zero. I mean, I got stories, man. Yeah. Anyway, those dreams, I don't want to hear them. I don't have time for all of them. But those dreams came true. And you know something, I had become a perfectionist with my shooting, not because I wanted to beat people or be any better than anybody else. I wanted to make sure that when I was going to take a shot in an animal. I could place the arrow where it belonged, and that animal would fall asleep. I mean, you put the arrow through his lungs, and they'll pass out. They don't even know what happened. In fact, the grizzly bear that I shot, we filmed the whole thing. I put the arrow through his lungs. He flipped in the air, came out of the water, came right up here, and he expired right there. It's 11 seconds from the time the arrow goes through that bear. The bear has no idea what happened to it. I mean, it was, and I mean, just some of these things that I got to do is just unreal. And they're out there. They're out there for all of us. And, you know, I had become like a self-made king. Anything I went after, I did it. And what's interesting, in the sport of powerlifting, I wanted to break a world record. And that's your dream. Well, you know something? When you break that world record, you know what your dream is then? You want to break it again. Then you want to break it again. And then you want to make sure that you're the strongest man in the world. Nobody will ever break your record. There is no limit to that. And I found that the same thing in making money. You make your first million, you want to make your second, and then your third. And you know something? All of a sudden you're driven to, this is what I'm going to do. All your whole focus, you're distracted, and this is what I'm going to do. And the same thing with hunting. Man, I wanted to take an elk in my bow. When I took an elk in my bow, I wanted to take a moose. And when I took a moose with my bow, man, I'd like to take a muskox, and then I'd like to take a polar bear. Well, those things are there. And by persistence, I accomplished them. But you know something? There was no cap to that. There was no satisfaction to what I was doing. You know, so I'm at home one day, and my wife, Karen, I always thought she was a little strange. I don't know how to put it. She loved the Lord more than she loved me. And I really felt that I was second in her life. And so I'm at home one day, and I can't remember what was going on. And Karen looked at me and she said, I want you to know something. I came into your life to help save you. I said, what? How are you going to save me? I got a house for you. You got a car, you got gas, you got food. I provided everything for you. How are you going to save me? And, you know, I really kind of took offense to that. And, but I did know for a fact that she loved the Lord more than she loved me. And I was number 2 in her life. And so going forward, I'm still focused on making money, whacking animals, and setting records. This is my life. And Karen is very much a part of that. But, you know, there was something special about it. And I would go to church with her on Sunday just to listen to her sing. I mean, she's got a beautiful voice. I'm a beautiful woman. And I just, man, it was, to me, the manly thing to do with my grandpa was he'd drive us to church, drop us off, and he'd wait for us to get done with church and pick us up. That was a manly thing to do. My grandpa was a man's man. I didn't know any better than that. But anyway, so with my shooting ability with my bow, they started doing a lot of filming, and I was always shooting pop cans at 100 yards. I shot a 35 millimeter film canister at 100 yards. I was always doing things with my bow. I shot high poundage bows. I shot bows that are up over 100 pounds, and they were tuned, and boy, were they accurate. Some of the things that you could do with a bow was amazing. I always shot at long distance to make me a good short range shooter. I didn't want to shoot animals at 100 yards. I would shoot pop cans and other things at long distance. But when it came to an animal being 40 yards from me, it was a chip shot. You had your confidence, and that's what you got to have. So anyway, there was a lot of stuff going on. Gander Mountain calls me up. Ray, we want you on our team, and this is what we want you to do. And I became an ambassador to their company, doing all kinds of stuff. And then one guy walks up to me one day, he says, we got a grand opening, Ray. Would you mind cutting the ribbon with an arrow instead of us cutting with the scissors? Yeah, no problem. I'm going to tell you what, that became one of the most difficult things in the world to do. That ribbon is this wide. You're standing back 21 yards with 300 to 600 people standing around you heckling you. And I'll tell you what, I've been in situations in powerlifting where you really got to focus and just forget about everything. This happened every time I went to a ribbon cutting. A little high or a little low, you found out what kind of man you are when you shoot the second shot. So anyway, I was practicing and doing, I mean, there was a lot of things that happened. A lot of companies came forward, a lot of things. Also, I became a celebrity in the outdoor world. I was on TV all the time. I was doing videos. I was doing all kinds of stuff. You know, this is all part of, man, I'm a self-made king, man. This is it. And anyway, I was in church one day. It was on Sunday with Karen. And I'm sitting there, and guess what day it is? It's Father's Day. And I'm sitting in there thinking about my dad. And then I got thinking, gosh, I got to have my kids, and I got to have a business. I got to chase my dreams and set some records. I don't know that I want to change my life. And I'm sitting there thinking about that. And you know what I did? I forgave my dad that day. I forgave him for everything he did to my brothers and sisters and me. I absolutely hated my dad. I didn't like the way I looked because I looked like my dad. If I would have seen my dad on the streets, it wouldn't have been good. But I forgave him that day. And you know something? I didn't know what that hatred did to me, because when I walked, while I was sitting next to Karen, and I started thinking about it, I started crying. Grown man sitting there crying next to my wife. My wife looked at me and said, "Ray, what's the matter?" I said, "Karen, I forgave my dad today." I walked out of that church a different man. I had a whole different outlook. So things started changing. And then the following week, I had to do an event in Texas. And there's a guy there by the name of Pat Quinn. Now, Pat Quinn is a guy that I work with. And you know, you guys know as athletes, and you're doing things, you have other people that you connect with, and how does this work and how does that work? Well, one of the things I did for the hunting, I called these guys up and say, "Hey, have you been on a moose hunt? Is this a good place to go? You've been on a sheep hunt? Is this a good?" Well, Pat Quinn was one of my contacts. He was a great guy. And if you saw Pat Quinn, looked at him and say, "Yep, that guy looks like a movie star." He does. I mean, he's a character. Anyway, we go to this event, and there's hundreds of people at this event. And my wife is talking to Pat and talking to Pat and talking to Pat. And I started getting a little swolled up. I started turning a little green. And this is going on for 45 minutes. 100 people on it, and they're talking and talking and talking. And all of a sudden, I had it. So what the heck's going on here? And I walked right up to Pat and Karen. I looked right at them and said, "What's going on?" And I could imagine the look on my face. And, you know, Pat and Karen both turned and looked at me at the same time and said the exact same words. They said, "We're talking about your salvation." I said, "What?" And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard. I shook my head and walked away from them. And, you know, I thought, man, oh man, I didn't know how to handle what they said to me. I knew how to grab a hold of Pat by the collar, shake him and say, "Stay away from my wife." I didn't know how to handle what was just said to me. And I walked away. And anyway, the event was over with. I went back home. About 2 days later, Pat Quinn probably did the boldest thing a man could do. He called me on the phone. And he says, "Ray, I want to talk to you about having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ." And I never heard this before. You see, my grandpa, he was a man's man. He'd drop us off at church and pick us up again. And anyway, Pat opens up and tells me this, and he starts talking to me. He talked to me for probably a half hour on the phone. I think the only thing I heard that really made anything to me at all was that I could have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, because I kept thinking about, how could I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? I mean, I'm not the most perfect guy in the world. Anyway, going forward, I had a ribbon cutting to do. And this is unbelievable. Anything I did, I had camera people with me all the time, filming me, and they used it for all kinds of stuff with in the outdoor industry. And anyway, I had a ribbon cutting to do, and I thought, man, 21 yards. Remember, we have all these people. I gotta make sure I got my confidence, you know. So for whatever reason, I went out back in my place. There's no wind that day, and I put 5 ribbons on the target. I thought, gosh, I'm going to go back to the 100-yard line and see if I can cut a ribbon at 100 yards. And so I walked back. I didn't think I could do it. I had a 100-yard pin on my bow. And if anybody ever wants to know how to hit things at long distance, I'll teach them how to do it. There's a trick to it, and it really works well. And anyway, I walked back to 100 yards. I knocked up an arrow. I drew back. I took the top of my 100-yard pin, and I touched on the bottom of the top ribbon. I released that arrow, and in a blink of an eye, that ribbon got cut. Unbelievable. I cut that ribbon. And I thought, holy smokes, I cut a ribbon at 100 yards. And so I grabbed the next arrow up and cut the next one. What ended up happening is I cut 5 ribbons in a row. And I could not believe what just happened. And I thought to myself, Ray, that's the dumbest thing you ever did. You didn't have a camera guy with it because nobody ever believed what you did. I mean, I've done really cool things in front of a camera before, but cut 5 ribbons that are an inch wide at 100 yards. Anyway, I walked up to the target. Here's all 5 ribbons laying to the side like that. The arrows are just like this in a row. And the first thing that came to my head was, that's humanly impossible to do. And that God had me guiding these arrows. You know, it's just something that went in my head. I said, man, I got to do this again. This is incredible. I mean, I'm going to have all the I'm only going to be 21 yards from the target. I don't care how many people's there, man. I'm going to make a good shot. I mean, my confidence is right up here. So I started pulling the arrows out, and I started thinking about that. God had to be guiding these arrows. I got to the last arrow, and I pulled that arrow out, and I started thinking about all the way back to when I was 5 years old, all the things that had happened to me. I thought about forgiving my dad. I thought about what Pat Quinn said to me. And I started thinking, gosh, is there really a God? Is he really in my life? Did all these things happen? Did they happen for a purpose? And you know, I'm thinking about this stuff. And then I put 5 more ribbons up there. I'm gonna go cut them again. You know, I turned around and I started walking back to cut the ribbons, and I got about halfway back. I couldn't stop thinking about what I was thinking. I couldn't get it out of my head. I started thinking about things that had happened that shouldn't have happened, and why did they happen? The next thing you know, I went to my knees. I knew the truth. I had a bow in one hand and arrows. It was one of my gods. Making money, hunting animals with my bow and setting records. Those were my gods at the time. And I raised that bow up and those arrows up, and I said, from now on, Lord, this is no longer to my glory, it's to yours. And, you know, I asked God to forgive me for my sins. And then I asked him, would you please guide me in my life so that I know what to do? And, you know, it was really something. I'd made my second promise. I promised to follow the Lord. And, you know, Tom Polkey, who was my social worker, said, Ray, I'm going to find a better home for you. I'm going to help you. God's already made the same thing to me. Ray, I have a better home for you. I got a little work for you to do, but once it's done, you're coming home. Yeah. And in the next few minutes, I had more wisdom come in my head than I've ever had. I know that I've only got this much time left on the earth. I don't know if I got tomorrow or not. My grandpa, who I love very much, was gone. Other people were in car accidents that were hurt. My friend Bill passing away. I mean, there was a lot of things that had gone on, and I didn't know if I got tomorrow or not. And then God put it on my heart. My trophy room, it's as big as they get. It's completely filled with hundreds of animals in it. Those were the dreams I chased, and I knew that the day I died, those animals are going to be on somebody else's wall, and my name's not going to be on them. So what did I accomplish there? Nothing but for Ray Howell. Nobody even know who harvests them. All the money I had in the bank. You want to see something that's really interesting? You got a lot of money in your bank. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't know who your friends are. You got a lot of false friends. And people had my money spent before I was even dead. I can tell you that. So I can't take the money with me. So what did I accomplish there? Nothing. And the records that I set in powerlifting, those goals that I went after and went after them so hard, all the hundreds of hours of work, I knew that someday those records are going to be broken. Somebody had a little better day than me, a little better technique. They're going to break my record. And those records have been broken. I thought, my name's not even in a record book. What did I accomplish there? Nothing. And God put it on my heart. Everything that happened to me since I was a kid, to go out and let every kid know that no matter what their problems are, God's got a purpose for them. It's not the garbage on the streets. And I'll tell you what, from that moment forward, it was as clear as could be. Now I had to go tell my wife. And that was really interesting. I was scared because I'd made my second promise. I can't go back on the promise. I walked up to my wife and I said, Karen, I gave my heart to the Lord today. I promised him I was going to follow him. I don't have time for the business. I don't have time to set records in powerlifting. I don't have time to go whacking animals out there. I'm being called to let every kid know that no matter what their problems are, God's got a purpose for them. It's not the garbage that they're going through. My wife stands right there and she looks at me and she says, Ray, you do what you think is best and I'm sticking with you. I had no idea what I was married to. And so as that decision came forward and we started doing what we are doing, a ministry called Kicking There, the storms that come in, the troubles that go on, all the things are upside down. And yet I'm married a warrior bride that no matter what has gone on has stood by my side and fought the battles with me. I had no idea what I was married to. And you know, I started reading the Bible that day. I want to know what I did. I mean, am I crazy? Did this really happen? I knew it happened, but I mean, you know what? I started reading in the scriptures and the other disciples and the apostles. You know, there's a verse in there, Matthew 4:19. Come follow me and I'll teach you to be fishers of men. Those men dropped their nets. They were professional fishermen. They had a great livelihood. They dropped their nets and followed Jesus Christ. And you know something? I realized that day that I was an unnetted believer. God put it in my heart just the same as he did there. I walked away from the things that I was doing to do the Lord's work. So going forward, it's now 21 years. Hard to believe. I still hunt. I still weightlift. I still make enough to get by on, but everything I do is focused on Christ. And this is pretty eye-opening because I want everyone to know this. God has made each and every one of us perfect to do his will. I don't care how you look. I don't care what abilities you do or you do not have. God has already made you perfect to do his will. And, you know, I sat at a steel bench looking at a book, and these dreams were put in my heart. I want to chase these animals. I want to chase them with a bow. And I want to tell you something. This is pretty eye-opening. Some of the things that I've done with a bow in my hand, this is not bragging, I'm as human as the next guy, have been pretty cool. Yeah, I stood in front of 400 men one day and shot a target at 310 yards. Humanly impossible. I believed God was going to guide. There was different things that I did, shooting pop cans and 35 millimeter film canisters on film with these big wide broadheads and stuff. You know, there's a lot of things I did. But, well, anyway, I was doing a Bible study with Karen on Moses, you know, and Moses being called, hey, take the people out of Egypt, free them. And God gave Moses a staff. And, you know, as I was reading more about it, he also had Aaron who was there to help him. And Aaron had a staff too. But as I was reading this and I was kind of thinking about the study, I thought to myself, anybody that saw Moses use that staff and do the miracles that were done with it would say, yep, if I owned that staff, I'd be rich and famous, right? I mean, if you had it, you'd have everything you want. And so I started studying, trying to figure out, you know, Moses died, and I wanted to figure out what happened to his staff. I found out that Aaron's staff went into the Ark of the Covenant, and I can't figure out what happened to Moses' staff, and I'm reading about staffs. Yeah, and I don't even know why I'm doing it. So I get to Gideon. Gideon is being called to war. Gideon is from the weakest tribe, and Gideon doesn't know if God's real or not, but he makes an offering. And an angel of the Lord shows up, takes Gideon's staff, touches that offering and burns it up. Gideon knows God is real. What do you want me to do? And I'll tell you, if you read the story of Gideon and the things that went on, it's crazy what God did with Gideon and the battles that were won. So anyway, I kind of forgot about the staff after that. I mean, this went on for months. I'm sitting in my office, and this really happened. I'm sitting in my office. Pastor Mark Clemens comes walking in the office. He's a hunter, he's a fisherman, loves the outdoors. Walks in, he sits down in the chair, sits back. Ray, he says, you got to do more shooting demonstrations. He said, God put that staff in your hand to change men's lives. I said, what? Now, he didn't even know what I was studying on. I said, what did you say? God put that bow in your hand. That's your staff. He said, he put that in your hand to change men's lives. I broke down crying. How did this? And I want to tell you something. Your dreams that you have as a kid, God put those dreams in your heart. You follow those dreams. It's the devil and the garbage that is out there that takes those dreams away from you. It's the bullies that we're talking about that take those dreams away from you. Don't let them take those dreams away from you. God did make you perfect for his will. And if you follow what God has called you just by reading the Bible, it's amazing how you're. So here I am. I now got this family God has blessed me with. He's given me a calling. There's nothing easy about it. I'm a disciple, but I will tell you something. That same joy that I had in my heart when I was 5 years old, I have it here now. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of this or that, but I got joy. And you know, when I knelt down on that concrete floor and prayed again, set a steel bed and asked God to put somebody in my life that would never leave me, if I would have known that he had my wife Karen planned for me, I'd have been the happiest kid in the world. But I had to go through those things as a kid. I had to learn them. I had to understand them, because someday God was going to call me to a ministry called Kicking Bear, so that I could go out and push the enemy out of as many kids' lives as I can. I don't know how much time I got left on this earth. I'm not planning on retiring, but I'll tell you what, if you guys come to a Kicking Bear event, I'll guarantee that you will be sore for 3 days after that, because we have that much fun. So I kind of got a little long-winded on stuff.
Oh man,
No, not at all.
I was about to. This is the easiest interview ever.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
But man, I don't know. Like a lot of wisdom, right? Like just without. That's why I didn't, stop you at all, or want to pause, because I'm just like, the only thing that you were probably thinking the same thing is like, make sure you take note of that.
Yeah, right.
Make sure you take note of that. Like the bullying thing, a couple of things out, Orion and I have talked about this a lot, is, if you are an athlete and you're working hard, and whether you have success or not, you have influence and leadership, and to understand the gravity of bullying, and it's real. And you should really go out of your way and take some self-inventory. If you're a part of that, that's got to stop. It's just got to stop. Okay. Like Ray said, with in his faith story, like you were put on this earth for a reason, and it's not, I can guarantee you, it wasn't to bully. Okay. It was to speak life and joy into your teammates and stuff like that. Yeah. Anything?
Yeah, no. So I'm glad he brought up the staff. Because I remember Ray, we were texting one day, and he was texting me about how God put a bow in his hand, and he said, "Your staff is a hockey stick." And I still remember where I was. I was on the pike. I was in a vehicle, and just reading that, and I was staring at it, thinking, "Man, that's powerful," And if he didn't bring the staff up, I was gonna bring that story up and just let him know how that hit me, and how special that is. And I think me and Brandon are trying to do the same thing for kids and you guys, and we're using our staff to get that message across to you guys. But I just wanted to let Ray know, like, that was a really powerful point, in my life, sitting there reading that, and just how true it was. So yeah, just a really cool. God has a crazy way of doing things.
He does.
Yeah.
He does, and how he's used some of your hurts, your bruises in your life, and turned it around for his glory and impact more people. Whatever you guys are going through, whatever you gals are going through, like, it's equipping you too. Like, there's always something to learn from the pain that you might be experiencing. And I guess one question I have it written down right here, is you've worked with so many kids with Kicking Bear, probably thousands, safe to say, right? Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And, so what are some common themes that you've seen amongst, the young men, the young women, the boys and girls that come to Kicking Bear, and you see maybe some hurts? What are some common themes that you've seen and and some of the things you've been able to maybe help minister them?
Well, I guess it goes back to some of the things I saw when I was a kid. The only thing my dad and my mom did wrong in life is that they weren't in the Bible together. If they would have been in the scriptures together, they would have not let the devil drive a wedge between their marriage. And what ends up happening is they drive that wedge between the marriage, and the next thing you know, the kids are poured out onto the street and they're turned into puppets. And the devil does what he wants with them because they don't have a spiritual leader in their family anymore. And I see this over and over with the kids who have been left alone because they don't think anybody cares about them, and they are being bullied. And, a lot of times you can't, the single parent mom, she's out there trying to make enough money to just keep food on the table. And it's a very scary world. And the devil is right there to cause trouble. And so these kids, when you get into where we have a kicking bear event, it can be a youth hunts, or it could be the fishing trips, or it could be a full-blown camp. When they come there, a lot of them are kind of quiet. They're a little bit distant until they get to the point that they find out this is really a different camp. This is about sharing the love of Jesus, and let's have a blast. And you get into the tug of wars and the gunny sack races and the water balloon fights and the marshmallow fights and the bonfires, and you ain't got time to be pulled back out into that garbage. You're there and you're having a blast. We want to let these kids know that there is a better life out there. Just hang on. Don't give up. If I would have gave up and jumped out of that car that day, if I would have went the other path instead of making that promise, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have a beautiful wife. I wouldn't have my children, and I wouldn't have 42 grandchildren. I got to be a dad, a grandpa, and now a great grandpa. I just want everybody to know that that is yours. Just hang in there. Don't give up. And yeah, I see it a lot. And when you actually sit down with these kids and talk to them, it's worse than when I was a kid. I can tell you it's way worse. And some of the stories they got, all this stuff that goes on in this world, the devil has made everybody think this is normal. It's okay. It's okay to have same-sex marriage. It's okay to this and that. It's okay. I mean, it ain't okay. And it just kind of goes right down the line that, okay, all the stuff that's going on, that's happening, it's normal. And I'm going to tell you something. I guess if I left a message to anybody here today, and especially for the kids, if you got troubles in your life, get into the scriptures. Find a good church to go to that preaches right out of the Bible, and just try to get your mom and your dad to get into church and get it in so you got the family as a family unit. And I don't know, if you got troubles like that and you need to have somebody to talk to, you send a message to Kicking Bear website. But the thing is getting together with men who care, men like you, that care about people. I mean, that's really what's guiding this world. I think this next generation is what's got to get this country turned around and get back on its feet. I can't believe half the stuff that's going on. But God's got a plan on all of it. God is going to be victorious, and he has made a promise. You follow him, and you got eternity, and there won't be any of the cancer. There won't be any of the bullying. There won't be any of the sickness. You're going to be eternity in heaven with him, and there'll be great joy. So I don't even know what I'm doing here on this earth. Kind of makes you want to go right now. So I have to put up with it. But God's got a purpose for you. He's got you here. You're to be disciples, to make disciples. That's your job, and that's your job till you go home. So.
Well, and I don't think it's, I think it's interesting how God orchestrated how this meeting is even going on right now. And how we're, talking to a bunch of kids with technology, and how just outside of texting, we didn't really get a chance to meet one another until recently, to moving back here, and your neighbors with Araya, and it's just crazy, and it's cool how God works.
Yep.
So I appreciate every second you spent with us today. I really do, and I look forward to, I know Araya does too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
building a relationship, and if we can, be of help to Kicking Bear and what you got going on, we believe wholeheartedly in that. So we look forward to doing some cool things with that too. And I hope you guys take advantage, you girls and boys take advantage of Kicking Bear Ministries too, and just see and learn what that's all about. So thanks for hanging out with us today on the Sunday Exploring Faith. And we're going to hammer it, you know, starting tomorrow. We're going to get back in. We're going to be working hard, doing speed work. We'll get all the curriculum to you for you next week. Anything else, man?
No, excited for week 2. It was an awesome week with you guys, and excited to get after it tomorrow.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Stop.